The whisper in the parking deck. I always thought airport drop-off nights had their own rhythm: park, hug, wave, and drive home through half-lit streets. No drama, no surprises. That night at Charlotte Douglas, I learned how quickly an ordinary routine can turn into a fault line. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Alina Morales, 70 years old, grandmother to a boy who sees everything, and mother to a woman I thought I knew. If the story resonates, tap subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing the map of your lives fill up. We took my daughter, Kendra, to the terminal for a flight to Seattle. The concourse hummed in that soft way it does after 9 p.m., all muted announcements and rolling suitcases. Kendra's blazer was crisp, hair tucked neatly. 3 days, she said, kissing my cheek. Theo's allergy meds are in the green drawer. She knelt and smoothed my grandson's hair. Be good for grandma. Theo, 7, solemn and tuned to frequencies adults miss, looked at her with those unblinking eyes that make you feel either completely seen or slightly exposed. We watched her melt into the security line, a carry-on clicking in time with her heels. Then we headed for the parking deck. The air smelled like concrete dust and cold metal. I pressed the fob, our beat-up Camry blinked, and Theo suddenly stopped walking. His fingers clamped around my wrist hard. Grandma, he whispered, don't take me home. Please believe me, there are whispers that slide off your skin and whispers that cut to the bone. This was the latter. What is it, sweetheart? My voice came out steadier than I felt. I heard Mom this morning, he said, barely moving his lips. She was in the office on the phone. She said after we fall asleep, the generator in the garage will run. She said to tape the vents so no air gets in, and to double check so it looks like, a heater accident. Time went chilly and slow. Carbon monoxide, tape on vents, a heater accident. I flashed back to little things I'd brushed aside, late-night calls behind a shut door, Kendra fixing the furnace at 2 a.m., Theo telling me he'd heard her moving around in the garage. I had been chalking it up to grief, to stress, to a busy mind, and to the way adults dismiss what children can know. I believe you, I said immediately. The relief that flooded his face collapsed every remaining doubt in me. We're not going home. We drove with no destination and too many thoughts. Theo curled sideways in the seat, small and taut with adrenaline, and fell asleep. I stopped at a fluorescent-lit diner and wrapped my hands around a coffee that tasted like pennies. That's when my phone vibrated. Kendra. Hey, Mom, she said, sounding casual. Where are you? You're not home. That she knew we weren't there sent a cold line down my spine. We stopped for dinner, I lied. Theo was hungry. Where? That place by the mall. Right. A tiny pause. Flights delayed to tomorrow morning. I'm coming back now. The call clicked off. The coffee turned sour in my mouth. She was checking. She knew our patterns. She might have cameras. She was coming home, and if Theo was right, there was no way I could take him back to that house. Only one person was safe to call, Ruben Alvarez, the super at our old building. Ruben had known me for 20 years, had once replaced a kitchen faucet without charging me because who charges their abuela? He was discreet. Loyal, a keeper of keys, and quiet. I drove to Parkview Towers and parked on a side street where the cameras didn't quite reach. In the lobby office, Ruben looked up from a crossword, startled at the sight of me at that hour. Senora Alina, I told him the short of it, the bare minimum. His face changed while I spoke, shock, disbelief, then the serious look of a man moving into action. He hustled us through a staff door into his tiny apartment behind the laundry room. No name, no doorbell, sat Theo at a wobbly table, made hot chocolate, and put a hand on my shoulder. You can't go back there, he said. I have to, I said, for evidence. Without proof, the police might call this a misunderstanding. You know Kendra, on paper she's polished and dependable. He didn't like it, but he understood. He handed me a prepaid flip phone. 1 ring and hang up means you're fine. 2 rings means trouble. I'll wait around the corner in my truck, 20 minutes. If you're not out, I call 911. Theo grabbed my sleeve when I stood to leave. Don't go, he pleaded, the old soul steadiness cracking. I knelt and cupped his face. You saved our lives tonight, I told him. Now I'm going to make sure no one can say we imagined it. I will come back. Ruben and I drove the last block with the lights off. The neighborhood was asleep. I slipped in through my kitchen door with my key, shut it softly, and stood still until my heartbeat calmed. The house answered with its usual chorus, the refrigerator's hum, the ticking mantel clock, and something else faint and wrong, the acrid sweetness of tape adhesive, the chemical ghost of solvent. Upstairs, I crept to Kendra's office. The knob didn't turn, locked. I slid a hairpin from my bun. Years ago, raising a teenager with a flair for slammed doors had taught me more than a few inconvenient skills. I set the pin to the lock. Somewhere outside, a car door clicked. What I found behind that office door and what came up the stairs minutes later changed everything. The folder, the footsteps, and the fall the hairpin turned with a soft click. I eased the door open and stepped into Kendra's office, neat, calculated, every pencil aligned. I avoided the laptop, passwords take time. Paper, on the other hand, tells the truth faster. Top drawer, invoices, old proposals. Second, blank stationery, pens, a stapler. Third, a line of tax binders and tucked behind them a cobalt blue folder that didn't belong. I slid it free and opened it on the desk. My life cracked down the center. There were bank statements for accounts I'd never seen, transfers to someone named M. Keller, a stamped receipt for a portable generator from a hardware warehouse across town, and a printed diagram of our HVAC system with notes about seal intake, no leaks. A copy of my life insurance policy sat in the stack, margins inked with payouts and timelines. And there, cold as a checklist, was a printout of the family trust I managed, with a column labeled Access After Event. I lifted my phone and snapped photos of every page, my breath steady only because it had to be. The front door opened downstairs. I hit Ruben's burner 2 rings, then hung up. Trouble. Footsteps started up the stairs, heavy, deliberate, not Kendra's quick stride. I shut off my pen light, slipped behind the door, and pressed flat against the wall. The handle turned. A shadow slid across the rug. Clear, Kendra called softly from the hall. A deep voice, close enough that I could hear his breath, answered, "Looks empty." He stepped in, tall, broad-shouldered, paused, listening, then turned back toward the hall. "I'll check downstairs." "Mason," Kendra said, "make it quick. If she's out, she'll come back." Mason, M. Keller, my pulse drummed in my ears. I had 2 choices, freeze and pray or get out. The office window opened to a trellis swallowed in ivy. A stupid idea for a 70-year-old woman. But the stairs were no longer an option. I slid the window up inch by inch. The night air sliced through my blouse. I swung one leg over, then the other, and tested the trellis with my weight. It creaked but held. I moved sideways, clinging with my fingers, toes searching for footholds buried in vines. The rough wood bit my palms. From downstairs, a muffled crash, a grunt, Ruben's voice. "Let go of me." My stomach dropped. He'd come inside when I sent the trouble signal. Brave, infuriating, loyal Ruben. Inside the house, the male voice barked, "Who else is here?" Kendra's reply was a hiss I couldn't make out. I made the last descent, more grim than graceful, slipped, and landed on the grass, a bolt of pain shooting through my hip. I swallowed a cry, pulled myself into the shadow of the pecan tree, and ran bent over to the low brick wall at the back. A window slid up above me. A flashlight beam cut the yard. I pressed myself into the leaves, hardly daring to breathe. "Backyard's clear," Mason called. "Tie him up." I scrambled over the wall into the neighbor's yard, blessed the Millers and their talent for deep sleep, and limped across wet grass to the side street. Under a flickering street lamp, I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. "My name is Alina Morales," I said when the operator answered. "My daughter is planning to stage a carbon monoxide accident to kill me and my grandson. She's in my house right now with an accomplice. A friend who tried to help me is inside. He's in danger. I have photos of the plan." Maybe it was the calm in my voice. Maybe it was luck. A patrol car rolled past just then. I stepped into the street, waving both arms. The officers took one look at my face, another at the photos on my phone, and called for backup. The next minutes blurred. Officers slipping into my home through the back, shouts, breaking glass, a door slammed, then silence. When they came back out, 2 officers had Ruben under the arms, limping, bleeding at the temple, very much alive. Behind them, a stocky man with tattoos and a busted lip. Mason stumbled in cuffs, scowling. "Your daughter fled out the back," an older officer told me. "We missed her." Cold slid down my spine. "Theo." We sped to Parkview Towers. My heart snagged when I saw the service door ajar. The small apartment door was locked. The officer shouldered it open, and I ran to the sofa bed, a blanket flung over the side, a cup tipped on its saucer. Beneath it, a note written in Theo's tight, careful print. "Mom found me. She says you're sick and making things up. I'm scared, please find me. The room tilted. The officer was already on his radio, a child abduction alert chattering through his earpiece as he described Kendra and Theo, our car, our faces, our fear. At the station, they copied my photos and took statements. Mason began to talk about money, about timing, about the accident. Sergeant Reeves, soft-spoken and iron-backed, kept me informed without making promises he couldn't keep. The sky hinted at morning. My phone vibrated with an unknown number. "Grandma?" Theo's small voice steadied me like nothing else could. "I'm okay, she's asleep, I found a phone." Theo's whisper held the clue that could save him, but only if we moved fast enough. "The call, the clue, and the long drive, where are you, my brave boy?" I asked, signaling frantically to Sergeant Reeves as a text slid over to start the trace. Theo's voice was barely a thread. "It's a house in the country, there's a lake and ducks. The mailbox says Silver Pines Farm. The road sign back there said County Road 27, and there's a big highway with a 7, I think 73. You are extraordinary," I whispered. "Listen to me. There's a barn behind the house?" "Yes. Hide there, stay away from windows, the police are coming. If you hear Mom, don't answer, wait for uniforms." "I love you," he said so soft I almost missed it. "I have to go." She moved. The line went dead. Reeves' team was already triangulating. "There's a Silver Pines on County Road 27 off State Highway 73, a deputy called from a terminal. "Deeded last year to a shell company?" Reeves looked at me, I nodded. "Of course there was a shell company. You need to stay here," he said gently. "I'm coming," I replied, the truth of it unmovable. "I'll sit in the car, I'll follow instructions, but I will be there when you bring him out." He waited, then nodded once. "Car 3, he told a young officer. "She rides with you. No hero moves." Reuben planted himself next to me, bandage askew, chin up. "I'm not letting you two go without me." Dawn pulled a pale stripe across the sky as we rolled west. Sirens stayed dark, radios murmured. I watched neighborhoods give way to fields and horse fences, the city unspooling behind us. Fear had a sound like tires on highway seams and a taste like old pennies and bitter coffee. I let it pass through me. What matters most is the next right thing. That mantra carried me from my kitchen to this seat, and it would carry me the rest of the way. The convoy eased to a stop just shy of the dirt drive marked by a splintered Silver Pines Farm sign. Reeves held a quick huddle, officers splitting in twos, disappearing into the stand of pines flanking the lane. "You stay put," the young officer told me. I nodded, hands clasped hard enough to ache. Minutes stretched thin. A bird called. Somewhere a cow lowed. The radio crackled with clipped phrases I couldn't decode. Then a shout, distant and sharp. Reuben's fingers tightened on my forearm, and then, cleaving the newborn morning, a single gunshot. I didn't wait to be told what to do. I flung open the car door. "Miss Morales," the young officer barked, but I was already running, his footsteps thudding behind me, Reuben limping fast a few paces back. The drive bent left. The farmhouse came into view, white boards gone gray with weather, a porch with 2 chairs, one missing a slat. 100 paces beyond it, an old barn sagged into the field like a tired shoulder. Officers were posted behind low walls and trees, their stances alert, deliberate. Kendra stepped onto the porch. For a heartbeat, I didn't recognize the woman I'd raised. Her hair was tangled, blouse wrinkled, eyes starring with a wild shine. In one hand she held a pistol, with the other she gripped Theo against her, using his small body as a shield. "Don't come closer," she screamed. "I swear I'll shoot." Sergeant Reeves stood half-covered behind a fence post, voice calm and measured. "Kendra Moore, put the weapon down and let the child go. We can talk. No one has to get hurt." "You don't get to tell me anything," she spat. A jerk of her head in my direction, "has been controlling me my entire life. My father's money was supposed to be mine, and she locked it up so I had to beg. She made me nothing?" The words landed heavy and familiar. We had argued about the trust, yes, but I had believed we were working through it. I had believed a lot of things that weren't true. I stayed partly behind a patrol car farther up the lane, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Theo's face was pale, his eyes huge, but they were steady. He flicked his gaze toward the barn, then back to me. Once. Twice. Not random, intentional. He was making her focus forward while officers maneuvered behind the barn. My brilliant, brave boy, even now he was buying time. "Kendra," I called softly, stepping no closer than the patrol car's bumper. She swung the muzzle toward me. I lifted my hands, palms up. There was no flight. There will be no accident. Theo heard your plan. He saved us. You were never supposed to wake up, she hissed. You were supposed to. Her mouth worked around the end of the sentence and couldn't find it. For a second, confusion broke through the rage. Let him go, I said. This is between you and me. The tendon in her jaw jumped. She tightened her grip on Theo. He moved his eyes once more, Barn, then me. Ready? In the next breath, Theo made a choice that turned the whole morning. The standoff, the bite, and the broken heart. Theo moved first. In one quick, shocking motion, he twisted, bit down hard on Kendra's forearm, and dropped, rolling off the porch and away from the line of the gun. The shot cracked wild into the air, splintering the porch post and sending starlings wheeling from the barn roof. Everything accelerated. Officers surged from both sides, voices layered. Drop it. Hands where I can see them. As two tackled Kendra, pinning her to the boards. The pistol skittered across the porch, clanged against a chair, and stopped. I sprinted the last steps, knees giving and catching. Theo crouched by the railing, his whole body shaking. I wrapped him up, tucked his head under my chin, and felt his breath shudder against my chest. You came, he whispered. I will always come, I said. Always. They marched Kendra past me moments later, hands cuffed behind her, hair stuck to her temples, fury burned down to emptiness. She looked at me once. I couldn't read it. Maybe there was nothing left to read. Paramedics checked Theo's vitals, then mine, while Sergeant Reeves ran through what would come next in a low voice. Charges for attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and unlicensed firearm. Mason was already cooperating. The documents I'd photographed sealed the pattern. We'll take statements after the hospital, he said. There's no hurry on that. There is one thing, I said. I want to speak to her once. Supervised? Reeves studied my face, then nodded. 2 minutes, he said. You decide where to put that weight. They sat Kendra in the back of a cruiser, the door open, an officer standing 3 feet away, alert. I stepped to the threshold and held onto the door frame because my knees weren't entirely reliable. Why? I asked, not unkindly. Simply, help me understand what you told yourself that made this possible. She stared at the floorboard, then up at me. The fierce light in her eyes had gone out, leaving something flat. You would never understand. Try, I said. I owe Theo that much. A tick jumped in her cheek. I was drowning, she said. The debt, it didn't start big, then it was. Work costs, medical bills, stupid investments. Every time I looked for a way out, there was a wall. That money was right there, and you kept it in a safe I couldn't touch unless I was 21 again. Mason said there was a way to make it right. One night and it would all go quiet. And Theo? I asked. The name came out ragged. She closed her eyes for a beat. I told him not Theo. He said it had to be both. 1 death looks suspicious, 2 look like an accident. He said if it was only you, everyone would look at me first. I told myself he'd sleep through it. I told myself it would be like he never knew. You chose, I said softly. It wasn't an accusation, it was the truth laid bare between us. Tears ran the tracks of her cheekbones and left them shining. I know, she said. I know. You need help, I said. Not just a public defender, a doctor. Whatever's been twisting inside you, money won't fix that. She didn't argue. Will you keep him? She asked, the bravado gone. You'll do better than I ever did. I will keep him, I said. I will love him fiercely, he will heal. And when he's ready, I will tell him the truth without making you a monster. I owe him that. She nodded once, a strange relief passing over her face that made me want to cry and had nothing to do with forgiveness. The officer touched my elbow. Time. Back at the ambulance, Theo sat on the bumper with a juice box, straw pinched between his fingers. Reuben hovered like a gentle statue, not willing to leave breath's distance between us. You okay, Campion? Reuben asked. Theo nodded, looking older than 7. On the ride back, Theo rested his head on my shoulder and finally slept deep and slack, the kind of sleep that only comes when a body has burned itself out. I watched the trees blur by and thought about love, which is so often mistaken for control. About guardrails that look like cages to the one who never learned to trust them. About the stories we tell ourselves to survive and the way those stories can end up being the most dangerous thing in the room. Sergeant Reeves met me at the hospital entrance. We'll give you space, he said. Tomorrow is soon enough for the paperwork. Thank you, I said. It wasn't just for the paperwork. Survival was only the first chapter. Healing would be the hard one and the most important. Aftermath, answers, and a promise the days that followed were measured in appointments instead of hours. Hospital checks, statements, a quiet meeting with a child therapist who had a soft voice and a shelf of tiny animal figurines. The news got wind of it and tried to turn our grief into a headline. Reeves shielded us more than he had to, and I won't forget that. Mason pled down and wrote his story into a state laptop in exchange for years he hoped wouldn't be his whole life. Kendra was evaluated by a psychiatrist who used phrases I had felt but never named. Her arraignment felt like a ritual from a distant culture, robes and words and forms, until the clerk read the charges out loud and my throat closed again. Theo and I moved into a small rental near a park. The first morning, he found a trail of ants on the windowsill and named the big one Captain. We bought a second-hand couch that sank in the middle, a blue lamp that made evening feel like a storybook, and a cheap set of pans that burned eggs unless we were patient. Some nights, Theo slept hard and woke up asking for pancakes like the world had always been this sweet. Other nights, he dreamed a kind of dream that makes a child call out without waking. On those nights, I lay my hand on his back and matched my breath to his until whatever monster had its hands on him slipped away. A week after the ranch, long after midnight, he woke and asked the question I knew was coming. "Why did Mom want to hurt us?" he whispered, eyes glossy in the nightlight's halo. "Didn't she love us?" I sat on the edge of his bed and took time with my answer. "Your mom is sick," I said, "not the kind of sick that gives you a fever. The kind that changes how someone thinks and feels and sees the people around them. She did love us in her way, and that sickness twisted her love until it made dangerous choices seem like the only ones." "Will she get better?" he asked. "I hope so," I said, truthful as I could be. "Some people do with hard work and help. What I know for sure, you're safe, you're loved, and none of this was your fault." He nodded slowly. "Thank you for believing me," he said, the words small and enormous at the same time. "I learned that from you," I told him. "From now on, when you tell me something matters, I will listen with all the years I've got and all the love I know." He smiled a little and toppled into sleep. I watched him for a long time, thinking about that night in the parking deck. The way his fingers dug into my wrist, the way his whisper rearranged my idea of wisdom. I had spent 70 years believing that age made you right most of the time. It turns out love does, and love listens. On a bright morning 2 weeks later, we took a small backpack of crackers, grapes, and a juice box to the park. Theo watched a pair of ducks and counted their steps in a whisper. 7, 8, 9. A boy asked if he wanted to race to the slide. He shook his head, then changed his mind, then ran so fast his hair lifted in the wind. Progress is often this way: 2 steps forward, 1 pause, then a laugh. Before I end, if this story found you at a moment you needed it, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe and tell me your city and what time you're listening. Seeing all the places these stories land reminds me that none of us are alone. Sharing helps more than you know. I still think about Kendra. I don't have a tidy sentence for that. Grief is not something you finish like a book, it's something you learn to carry while you write new chapters. I hope she finds help. I hope whatever broke in her can be seen and named. But I am not responsible for mending it. My job is here: pancakes, nightlights, ant trails, school forms, and the small, steady work of building a life that feels safe. One day, when Theo is older and the words fit differently in his mouth, I'll tell him more. I'll tell him the stories I told myself about love and control and how easy it is to confuse the two. I'll tell him how he saved us, not with muscles or noise, but with the kind of bravery that doesn't look like a movie, bravery that looks like a whisper and a hand gripping a wrist in a cold parking deck. Until then, here is what I know. The smallest voices sometimes carry the biggest truths. Wisdom doesn't belong to age alone. And the promise I made that night, that I would always listen, still holds. If you want more true-life stories about courage, second chances, and the messy beauty of family, 2 new episodes are on screen now. Click 1 to keep going, and tell me in the comments what moment in your life taught you to really listen.